Hey guys, I'm Bill Combs.
And I'm Jeff Newton.
And we are Flashbang Creative. And we're coming at you unscripted here. We're going off the reservation, and this is going to be as long as it takes to tell you who we are, what we bring to the table, and generally what we can do for you. Hopefully you'll stick around for the ride and just put a face on who we are as a brand.
Hey guys, this is Jeff. Look, for me, it was pretty obvious early on that I can remember walking into a couple of local gun shops and I'm a hunter. You know, we live in basically a city, so there are limited places to hunt. Went to places with my dad to pick up ammo or look for the next firearm or whatnot. And I specifically remember this one time we walked into this local shop, and I, at maybe 12 years of age, watched 3 different salesmen treat my dad 3 different ways based on my proximity to him. And I remember thinking to myself in that moment, if the firearms industry could figure out customer service, they would have it made. For whatever reason, they always treated you like they were egotistical pricks, like your money was no good there, like you didn't know what you were talking about, or you didn't want this because you wanted that, and they just never treated you with any type of service in mind. And so what I wanted to do was start and actually establish a local shooting range here in town, because there was only one competitor anyway. And after going through the full market analysis, full business plan and everything else, I was maybe 22 at the time. I was too risk averse, didn't do it. Time passes, 8-10 years or so, never lost sight of that dream. Came back to it and said, hell, if I can't build the unicorn, what can I do today? And how can I reverse engineer this thing to build what I want to build? So I looked into becoming a home-based FFL and figured I would start from the ground up and work myself into that big pie in the sky dream.
That's sort of where I come in. Jeff and I went to high school together, and we sort of drifted apart, and then came back together one year when I was building a rifle, and I realized he was an FFL dealer. I'm an Army veteran, long-range reconnaissance, and I was building a rifle for myself and needed to do a transfer. And I'd been kicking around the idea for a long time of starting my own firearms business. I didn't know if I wanted to go the training route, which I had the most solid background in, or the retail route, which Jeff had me trumped. And what should have been a 15-minute transfer and a little reunion from high school turned out to be something that had a lot of substance and weight, and sort of ended in an instant connection because we approached things from a different way. I looked at things more from a training aspect as far as my technical aptitude on the range, and he looked at it from more or less his business aspect, from his FFL and retail standpoint. After that little meeting where I kind of asked him, what are you doing with your business? Where do you see it going? He kind of told me, and I said, oh, that's cool. I kind of thought about doing some training, and that was an avenue that he'd never really thought of going in. So long story short, we sort of were both thinking about it over the weekend, and he called me the next few days, and we talked about things. We decided, we need to have a meeting. We approach things in different ways, but with the same common goal, which I think makes us a pretty strong partnership. So from there, we took Inalienable Arms to a national level. We created a URL, an e-commerce website, as opposed to being, sort of a local supply and demand procurement aspect. We took it to a national level. We opted in. We both put our asses on the line, threw some capital down on the table, and created an e-commerce website, which I was guilty with my lack of technical aptitude in comparison to Jeff's. I thought, this is going to be awesome. We're going to build this website, and people are going to buy a bunch of guns off of us. And I couldn't have been further from the truth.
Yeah, I was equally as guilty, So I'd had the FFL for probably 1.5 years at the time. I had been doing the friends and family thing, sort of, brush fired itself out to a pretty good regular cadence of customers locally. And I thought, I'm spending a hell of a lot of time trying to find the right gun for this customer every time they text me and say, hey, I'm interested in this. They didn't realize that this had about 50 questions that needed answered before I could give them any sort of quote. And I thought, if I could just have a website that would do this part for me, if I build it, they will come. I had Kevin Costner ringing in my ears telling me that this is what was going to, define me and sort of make or break my success to take this thing from just something that was fun on the side, passion, a dream, into more of a paid hobby. And at least it was a paid hobby instead of a hobby that I was paying for. But I still struggled because internally I wanted to grow this thing to where it was not a paid hobby, but a full-on profession. So jumped in, both feet, paid what we needed to pay to get our e-commerce platform put out there. And that was where the learning began, was once Inalienable Arms was born at that point from a website standpoint.
Let's fast forward this to what's valuable for you guys. We quickly learned that we didn't know shit about the e-commerce side. We didn't know how to market ourselves through either social media, through Google AdWords, you name it. We didn't know what we were doing. We thought if we came in at a competitive price point, that would equal business. And unfortunately, you're competing against big box stores, and I'm not going to name any brands, but you probably know what I'm talking about as far as an e-commerce side of things. You're a small fish in a big pond. I mean, that's right down to it. And so we had to adapt. I mean, we had to find mentors. We had to reach out, get out of our comfort zone, and check our ego at the door and admit to some of these mentors that have been in the industry for a while or in various other industries. We had to let them know, hey, we don't know shit, and we've got this awesome website that's not generating any leads. What do we do? And they schooled us. And through a lot of bruises and bloody noses and
all-nighters,
we kind of learned the game, and consistency is the game. And one thing that we had to learn especially fast is it was just two of us in the beginning. We had to learn to leverage technology. Technology is a force multiplier. And I know technology scares a lot of people away. Hell, it scared me away. I mean, if we ever get on a phone call, I will be the first to admit that I'm analog and Jeff is digital, because that's our backgrounds. And technology sort of scared me, or I didn't understand it, but I had to learn. It was adapt or die, and failure is not an option, at least not for me or Jeff. And so we had to learn a whole new set of skills. And through that, we were able to overcome and learn that consistency is key, but not only that, sometimes investing in the proper platform that does the heavy lifting for you is worth its weight in gold.
As we looked at Inalienable Arms and we tried to determine our core mission and our core purpose, we really zeroed in on two different spaces in the industry that we knew we could deliver value to, but we just hadn't reached out to yet. And those two areas were firearms instructors, because we had already gone through that process ourselves to offer concealed carry training to our area, because again, education, empowerment, training, all of that de-escalates the fear that everyone has around firearms. And that was one of the things that Bill and I shared that really drew us to each other, because not everyone approaches it that way, but we did, and that's what we were committed to. So we started reaching out to instructors, offering them access to what we had already built, which was wholesale pricing to firearms, because we knew if we were in front of 30 students a month, there were other instructors that might be in front of 600 students a month or 6 students a month. It didn't really matter. However many people you were touching, we knew that you could make an impact in their life, which would spiderweb out to anyone that they interacted with, which was ultimately getting the Second Amendment empowered, injected, and supported in the current state of where we are. And as we reached out to those instructors, we realized it didn't take long, maybe 10 phone calls, that it was a completely untouched and bastardized area of the industry. And because we're instructors ourselves, we already knew most of the challenges that we personally faced. We only had to take a couple more phone calls of who we talked to find out what they were running into, and we knew that we could solve a couple of those core problems for them.
Yeah, and I'm going to interject here. So the biggest barrier of entry for people of our profession, for our industry as a whole, is technology. We are losing the battle. We are dying off. Seriously, guys, think about it. I mean, under the threat of the potential administration that could have come into power recently, we could have taken big steps backwards, if not lost several of our rights. And that's something that we as a community and we as an industry, because you guys are instructors. You're no longer just part of the community, you're part of the industry. And whether or not manufacturers or distributors acknowledge that, that's an error on their end. We learned early on that we as distributors can't forget about the ground troops, the guys on the ground. And the guys on the ground are people like us that we're trying to push education. You're not just trying to push hardware. I'm not trying to push a Glock or an AR off on people. I'm trying to push the mindset and the value off on people. If you can push that value off onto people, then you extend the life of our values. Let's not accept the terms that we're under attack, man. We're coming under attack daily. If you look at the politics even right now under our current administration, his stance on the pro-gun community is under attack continuously. And we need to combat that. And the only way to combat that is intelligently. We have to unite as not only a culture, but as an industry. And you are part of that industry. And hopefully, by us reaching out to you, or even if it's somebody else, I don't give a shit if it's a competitor of ours. If they're reaching out to you, then that is for the common good. Because Jeff and I's sole purpose of even entering this realm is to prolong and project the value of the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms. And if that's something that we can accomplish through either empowering you or someone else empowering you, then we're all in.
Yeah, I can vividly remember in one of our early on 3 a.m. phone calls, Bill had sort of uttered this particular line, and I'd never heard the words strung together quite the way that he put it, but it was definitely singing a song to my heartstring about, if we don't address some of this stuff and truly educate and empower and reduce that fear that everyone seems to have, then we're no more than 2 generations away from the extinction of the Second Amendment. And that rung more true and was as concise a statement as anyone had ever articulated to me. And it was exactly what I knew I was trying to do, but didn't know how to convey it. And that's ultimately what we're doing here. It's why we put together what we put together. It's why we exist. It's what Flashbang Creative is all about. And it's what you'll get from us if you want to be part of what we're doing here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Flashbang Creative is more than just a web agency. We're about a movement. And honestly, that's why we got into the sales and distribution side of things. I mean, we arguably got into the sales and distribution side of things to make a difference. But then throughout that movement, we had to adapt and kind of reevaluate our course of action. And over time, we sort of learned that, it's not necessarily about pushing numbers. It's not necessarily about arming America. It's about educating America. And that's when we circle back to the instructor side of things, with what we're bringing to the table and what we're trying to offer, is the hard lessons we learned is coming in as a very small fish into a big pond of distributors. I'm sure that any of you who have ordered a firearm online, we've passed their products through our doors. We've made those transfers and we've competed with them, and we've done a very good job. I'm going to toot my own horn there, but the bigger picture and where we saw the most value from our core values, and I draw my core values from what I learned in the Army, honor, integrity. Those are virtues that are no longer primary in today's culture. If we can bring honor and integrity to the market and not give a shit about who's pushing the message or who's pushing the services, I think that we can push our values, which we share with you. If you're listening to this right now, you're one of us. We can help you push your message onto the people in your communities. You're now a community contributor. You may have never thought of your business that way, or you have, but you're a key proponent to keeping these values that we live with in today's society alive. And the only way to do that is through proper projection of power. You have to force multiply. And what we're bringing to the table is a platform that we have spent so many fucking hours developing. A web service, not only web service, but hosting capability and providing capability to take someone from the most basic level who doesn't know shit about technology, like myself in the beginning, to someone of a industry leader standpoint. And that's what we've learned over time. So we want to take, maybe you're not ground level, maybe you're mid-level or even high level, but what we want to do is take that experience level of harnessing technology and a social media presence and amplifying it and outsourcing it to us. We will do the heavy lifting for you so that you can focus more on your training aspect and push the message, de-bastardize the firearms to today's culture.
Yeah, the thing about it is, guys, is what we've brought and what we're offering now is an immediate solution to some of your biggest drags, which is time management, dealing with questions, dealing with phone calls, scheduling students, getting paid, not getting paid, getting no-showed. We're talking fundamental stuff here for your training practice. We can solve all those problems immediately. And we're going to grow this thing. It's going to solve more issues in the future. We'll learn more, we'll adapt more, we'll overcome more, we'll build it differently in the future too. It's never going to stop growing. It will always become better.
And we're going to adapt with you. As we grow and we learn your problems, we're going to adapt our game and we're going to push it back on you. Your problem may not be the guy's problem in one state over, but what we're going to do is we're going to take that guy who has an issue and we're going to address his problem and push that solution over to you. We're a force multiplier. We're all in this together. We're pushing a message and we're pushing a movement. And I mean that. I know it sounds cheesy and, it may sound corny, but I wholeheartedly mean that. That is literally why Jeff and I have spent the long hours that we have into the wee hours of the morning, because we got into this game working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 gigs. How else do you make that happen with a family? You put your family to bed and you be there for your family, and then you go to work. It's all about work, and that's going to come on your end as well.
Yeah, we're just going to be able to shortcut a majority of where you're spending your time now, and we can help you focus on where you need to spend your time to grow it to the next level. And look, you've been here for 20 plus minutes listening to us and where we came from, why we're here, why we're in it, why we're committed to you. And the truth of the matter is, if you've listened this long, it's probably because we're singing your song, we're speaking your language, you've realized we're not full of shit. And we're going to have a series of other videos that are going to walk through more of the specifics if you're still unsure. And we'll certainly dive into what does the website do, how does it help me, what's involved in it, what do I need to know, what don't I know that I don't know. We're going to hit all of that stuff in another area, but we just needed to come out first and be open and honest with you of who we are, where we came from, why we're here, where we're going, and you have to make the decision as to whether or not you're going to be a part of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. We came into this unscripted, as I said in the beginning. We tried to put some sort of context to this, but there's just no pushing the message, the movement that has to be made. We are an industry imploding amongst ourselves. We're killing ourselves, guys, by competing against each other and not uniting. We need to create some sort of common core and push this shit off to everybody. My goal is that everybody is a trained individual. Everyone needs some sort of basic firearms knowledge. Let's take this from a taboo industry into a everyday norm. That's what it's all about. It's about resonating as a community, because we are a community and we've got to push the message. We have got to push the message because we are dying off. I firmly believe that if we don't change the course and find a new course of action, we're 1 to 2 generations away from suffering some sort of Second Amendment infringement. And I mean on the large scale. I don't want to speculate to what level. And this isn't scare tactics. This is just what I feel. And I feel like the industry, at least anybody I normally communicate with, they feel the same thing. It resonates with them that we're under attack. We got to unite. United we stand, or divided we fall.
Yeah, look, if you're listening to this still, then you're on our website. You can find out what the process looks like. How do you get from where you are to having a solution that we've talked about? It's all outlined there for you. There's some additional details. There's the frequently asked questions that's going to answer a ton of the technical mumbo jumbo. But the good news is you don't have to know any of that, because we knew going into this that we didn't want you to have to know any of that. We're going to handle all of that for you on a monthly basis, and it just is what it is. It's part of that solution because it supports that common cause that Bill was talking about. So nonetheless, click around, research, email us, contact us. We'll figure out how we can put something together for you.
Our main objective was just for you to know who we are and what we stood for as a brand, as a company, as somebody you would want to do business with. I want you to see us as a business as someone who is eye to eye with you. We're peers.
We approach business just like our grandfathers did. That meant a handshake. Granted, this is the internet. We'd do a handshake over the internet if we could, because it's the type of business that we subscribe to. It's the type of loyalty and commitment that we subscribe to. But we know that that's difficult for some folks. So get in touch with us however you prefer. Phone call, email, contact form. It's all there. We'll put something together that works for you, and we'll advance this thing together.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll close this out. I'm Bill Combs.
And I'm Jeff Newton.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully some of what we said today resonates with you.